The Eat Like Ruby podcast is not a substitute for professional medical or dietary advice. The advice given in this episode is general in nature and should not be used to treat any medical conditions, health conditions, illnesses, injuries, and/or any nutrition-related conditions, deficiencies, or similar. This podcast is not to be used as or in place of medical advice or dietary advice. Please consult your healthcare professional before implementing any of the advice, information, or protocols discussed in this episode. Welcome to the Eat Like Ruby podcast. The episode you're about to hear is part of our Women's Health series. For the month of June, we have 8 episodes and 4 expert guests covering a range of women's health topics and how they work alongside being a health-conscious gal pursuing nutrition, training, body composition, and performance goals. Throughout these episodes, we'll be covering the menstrual cycle and its phases, how these phases might impact our nutrition, training, energy, and performance, as well as managing cravings and potentially adjusting our diet and/or our nutrition to suit different times in our cycle. We're also going to dive into PCOS and endometriosis and managing our nutrition, training, and goals alongside these conditions. We have a guest expert who's going to break down peri-menopause and menopause and explain exactly what is happening in the female body at this time, the changes it may have on our nutrition, training, lifestyle, health, and body composition, as well as things that we could look at adjusting with our nutrition and/or our training during this phase of life. And we will be jumping into a pre- and postnatal chat, covering all the things we should know about navigating our nutrition and training during this time, and potential changes to make to these things through different trimesters, as well as hearing from Eat Like Ruby nutritionist and trainer Emma Roth about how she is personally navigating all of this being 30 plus weeks pregnant. These episodes will drop every Wednesday and Friday on the Eat Like Ruby podcast for the month of June, starting on Wednesday, June the 4th. And today we are joined by guest Christina Harvey, who is a long-term friend of mine and is someone who navigates having endometriosis while also navigating nutrition and training, body composition, health, energy, performance, all of the things we speak about. And this is a very cool convo to hear from someone who is dealing with this and navigating this on a daily basis and really getting an insight into what that whole process has looked like for Christina from receiving her diagnosis, having a poor relationship with food and her body and her health, and then really turning that around. And in my opinion, and I think in your opinion as well, once you hear this episode, is really sitting in a pretty sweet spot right now after really putting in the work to get to a great position with all of these things.
Welcome to the podcast, Christina. This is so exciting. Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming. I'm stoked to have you here, and I think this is going to be a very cool, chatty episode off the back of our previous episode where we kind of learnt about what endometriosis is, and we also did PCOS in that episode. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have endo.
I have endo,
yes.
correct, yeah.
Yeah, and so I just thought it would be so cool to actually just talk about what that looks like in real life because I think it's cool to give the science and the facts and what's the actual information about something, but then okay, cool, what does that mean when you're actually just living with it every day? And especially I think someone like you who I think you do such a good job of yes, I do have this and here's my story, but also I'm not just a victim that's crying about it.
Fully.
Yeah. And so I just thought it'd be so cool to just hear what this is actually like for you.
Amazing. Yeah. I was thinking about that on the way here with so many things that we can be diagnosed with as humans, especially as women, but then also how quickly we can be to become that diagnosis and to decide that the information around it, the facts around it are just the facts and that's what your life has to look like. Yeah. And, there is so much truth to that, but then there's also so much choice in what we choose to believe about, what we might be diagnosed with. And at the end of the day, we're always going to live our life in alignment with what we believe. So, whilst I wouldn't choose to have endo, I also get to choose what I believe is possible for me with it and also what I choose to believe is possible for me to heal it and just not be a statistic. I think that's just the biggest thing for women where you don't have to be a victim like you say to it. There gets to be times where you are the victim and that's fine and you're in pain and, whatever, but then also it gets to be so much better than that if you choose for it to be and if you choose to decide that you can heal it or you can prevent it or you can manage it and not just, be a victim to it.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think that's so relatable to pretty much everything, like you said, all the things we can actually be diagnosed with, but even just when it comes to nutrition and training in general, we speak so much on the podcast about yes, there's the science and the facts, but then it's also how do we take those science and facts and make them work with our everyday life. Whether you're a perfectly healthy person or if you're someone pursuing fat loss or muscle gain or you're learning about nutritional training, like regardless of what you're like, quote, dealing with, I think having information and education is like the first step. But then also, like you're saying, taking that and being like, okay, personally, how do I apply this information to me and what does this actually look like for me in my life and making it all work?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think you do that so well.
Oh, thank you.
So when did you find out that you had endo?
Yeah. Big story. I'm
Yeah,
going to
we
try.
got time.
I'm going to try and like, you know, put it into a little box, but we know me. So prepare for the tangents. Long story short, my endo diagnosis was this beginning of me really healing my relationship with food and exercise and myself.
I thought this would all tie in.
Yeah, because I like high-key found out by accident. So what I mean by that is at the time of finding out that I had endo, I was very, very, I don't like the word toxic, but like very unhealthy in how I approached my training, in, you know, under fueling, in over exercising. I was, you know, waking up at 3 a.m. to work at a gym at the time, you know, doing 17,000 steps before 10 a.m., not eating till 1 p.m. because, you know, pushing out my food, training twice a day, like just, you know, not taking care of myself. And at the time I thought I was, and I was a shredded little legend, but I was not healthy, right? Not healthy. And that's just like the first, you know, something that we see all the time. Like your smallest version is not, for the most part, like your healthiest, right? We get to have seasons, we get to have goals. But yeah, I was in that phase. And
How old were you?
so this was 2021 I was diagnosed, but I would say it was probably 3 years prior to that. I was really in a season of like overtraining, undereating, adopting really unhealthy beliefs around food.
Yeah.
You know, taking advice and being influenced by people who in hindsight, no one's doing any harm or wrong, whatever, but was not educated at all. Just like, you know, shit that we hear online about, you know, it was like bananas are like just carbs on a stick, like avoid them. You can't eat any vegetables that aren't green, like just bullshit, like absolute bullshit. And I was so influenced and I was just like, okay, keto, you know, this, that and the other, whatever.
Yeah. And how old are you now?
I'm 29, guys. I'm 29. And
I was 29.
at my heart, I'm 23. So anyway, long story short, as a result of that, I used to have a lot of pain. It would come out of nowhere and it was almost like this pain from the bottom of my stomach all the way up to my chest. And it was like my body was just, I can't even explain it. It's like just incomprehensible pain. Like it was so crazy and it would take me out. So it would come on. I would feel it come on for about like 30 seconds and then it would wipe me. I'd have to be in a fetal position and just like nothing would fix it other than a heat pack, eating and fetal position over time, right? That was a result of undereating. So my body was just very much like, we are not coping. Something is wrong here. But I didn't know that that was the case at the time. And so that led me to go get some answers around like what's going on and all the rest.
Yeah.
And at that point I saw a specialist and they decided that I had endo. But at the time, I'm not sure if it's changed now, but you couldn't know unless you went in for a laparoscopy.
Yeah.
So until you were in the surgery, you couldn't be 100% sure that you had it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of that. Like I was just really overdoing it, undereating, overtraining. My body was reacting as it would be. It was like in a full flight mode, survival mode of like, girl, what is happening?
Give me something.
Give me something. Eat an apple. Like God forbid you ate something. And, you know, I can laugh about it now, but when I think about it, I'm like, that is just so damaging on your hormones, on your mental health, on your perception of yourself, of your energy levels, like all the things. And yeah, that's how I found out. It was like I just didn't take care of myself, which led me to ask some questions, which led to an answer that I didn't know about or didn't know could be a possibility, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like even now if I have days where maybe I've not over-exercised, but like, you know, very active days, or maybe I've been super busy, haven't eaten, whatever it may be. It's not common, but if it does happen, I get that pain. Like I know that that's what that pain is.
Yeah, right.
So it wasn't endo, but it led me to figuring out that I had endo.
Yeah, wow. And so did you actually go in for the procedure and find out that you had endo?
Mm-hmm. So I had a bit of an interesting experience with my endo and like my surgeon and all the rest. And I'm the first to say I don't want to come on here and like badmouth anything or anyone, but my experience wasn't amazing. And even in terms of finding out that I had endo, I did have scans and stuff like that. And my surgeon was kind of like showing me where it was, but I couldn't see anything. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but like you're the expert. So well, I got endo, you know? So, you know, I'm sure it was there. The sites of it was there and all the rest. I did take some stuff out, but it wasn't like crazy. Like it wasn't anything, you know, huge and really concerning at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were sites of endo at that time. So 2021 mid-year was when I had it, or April, May.
Yeah, right. And were you having any other like hormonal issues? Like did you have a consistent cycle or did you have issues with that happening at the same time from like the under eating and stuff?
Yeah, so I lost my cycle for a year and a half, potentially a little bit longer. Prior to that, I was on the pill for so many years.
Yeah.
And it's not until now, like life, right? Like you just learn so much as you go if you're willing and wanting to. And I've just learned so much that I didn't know back then around like my choices and, you know, the fact that it's not actually normal nor superior nor necessary to just go on a pill or to just have the Mirena or whatever. And again, that's also absolutely perfect for some people.
Yeah.
But for me in hindsight, I probably would have chosen differently if I'd known what I do now. But so for me, for so long, a lot of the symptoms probably were masked by the pill.
Yeah.
And then I lost my cycle for a little while. I came off it and then lost my cycle. And then had the surgery, had the Mirena put in straight away, and then was also told to go on the pill to manage my cycle. It was crazy. Like I think back and,
She's
you know.
been on a journey.
Oh, guys. And I'm thinking, well, I'm a hormone. You know? Sorry if I can swear.
That's all right.
Okay. You know, and yeah, and again, I have spoken to this before, but I just didn't know what choices I had even when I had my surgery. I was so scared, you know, like anyone, when you're just like, oh yeah, I've just been told I probably can't have kids. I've just been told that this is happening. I've just been told that if I don't do this surgery, XYZ. I was like, okay, whatever you say, like, I guess I'll do it. Like, I didn't know there was a choice to not have the Mirena or to not need to go on the pill or to not whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went on the pill I got prescribed the pill after about a month of having the Mirena because I just wouldn't stop bleeding. And that's when I was just like, nah, I'm not doing that as well. Like I'm not going on the Mirena and having a pill and having all of these artificial hormones pumped through my body. So until I got the Mirena removed this year, I had 2 bleeds a month.
Yeah, right. Oh my God.
Which is actually the opposite of what you want with endo because your cycle I don't really know the exact you know, facts, but your cycle, like the bleed is what can create more growth.
Yeah, right.
So it's like.
So then you're kind of essentially doubling that.
Yeah. And my surgeon was like, oh, well, everyone's different.
Oh my God. Everyone's different.
Like, what?
I think that's so relatable, even if people don't have endo or anything specific. And I spoke about this in the recent episodes with Sophie, who explained like what endo is and everything. And we were just talking about the fact that you kind of come into being a teenager and maybe you get your period and people start mentioning the pill and they talk about it for like one day in grade 7 and you're just like, okay, cool. Well, everyone's on the pill. Maybe I'll go on the pill. And I think people have like skin issues. So straight away it's like, oh, the pill.
Yep.
And I think it's just so common to get any or all of these things thrown at you and spend time on different ones. And then I think it's like you get into your 20s and maybe something happens or you just start to get a bit inquisitive. And then you start to piece all this together. And like you're saying, you just kind of did what you were told for years, but then you have to deal with what's the word I'm looking for? Consequences of like doing that for however long. Even, you know, in your situation, there's so much going on there, but even just some people that go on the pill and then I think some people spend years on the pill before they even know what it really is.
Fully. Well, that was me.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
And then you just look back and then you're like, shit, what have I been doing? What's been going on here?
Fully. And then because I've had a journey with this too, we're like, why do I feel so disconnected from my body? And it's like, well, because you've had hormones being pumped through it for so many years that aren't yours and that are artificial. And I'm so massive on this in society and some people will hate, you know, hearing this, but it's just how I see things. Like we're so quick to opt for the solution external of the choices that we actually have from a holistic lens, from a health lens, a nutrition lens, an exercise lens, whatever it may be, there is so much that we can do for ourselves before we go to the extreme.
Yeah,
and I'm
or
not
externals.
saying exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying one or the other. I'm not saying that, even like medicine and the marina and the pill and whatever, it's inherently bad. But I do also believe that it masks, or it's like we just go for that because it's so much easier than choosing to address our diet, choosing to, look at our sleep, choosing to look at the choices that we make every day, choosing to actually see where we're not making choices that would support healing naturally or holistically before we then go down that path.
Yeah.
And I think that's why so many people kind of opt for it. Again, it's no fault of anyone's, but it's just a lack of education around what you could be doing before then maybe addressing or, going down that path if that's a choice that you want to make for yourself as well.
Yeah, I literally could not agree more. I feel like there's a few things that came to mind there, but I think the number one value in Eat Like Ruby is education. And I think even outside of this like hormone and women's health stuff, even just when we look at people with weight loss goals or any sort of goals to improve their health or body composition or anything, I think it's the same thing. It's like we're looking for the extremes or the externals, or I need this quick fix. And really there's so many underlying like foundation basic things that we need to look at first. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about education, because a lot of people do think like, oh, well, I am looking at my nutrition. I am trying to eat well. I do exercise. But if we don't actually dig a little deeper and know like what is, quote, good eating for me and the phase of my life and what I'm dealing with, and like there's so much to it, I think, where we're quick to just look for those external things, but I think we just have to stop for a sec. And I think it's a lot easier said than done, because when you're dealing with health issues like you were, or if you've got someone who's dealing with body image or weight or anything like that, there is so much emotion and everything there as well.
100%.
So I just want to acknowledge that as well, because there could be people listening in any situation that think, but I do just want the quick fix.
And it's like,
and
power
rightly
to
so.
you though, if you're just like, that's a choice that I want to make it, but just be aware of other choices as well.
Yeah, and I think we just have to stop for a sec and go, okay, like emotionally I do want that quick fix, but do I actually want to know what is going on with my body? What is good eating for me? What is the right choice for me and my hormones, and bringing in external things?
Yeah.
And I think you and I are absolutely on the same page with, like you keep saying, external things aren't, quote, wrong, but they're not just the answer.
Fully.
They're not just the thing to use on their own. It's like someone, doing weight loss meds or salts or something crazy like that without looking at nutrition.
Exactly. And something that comes to mind there as well is like the quick fix actually usually creates more harm longer term anyway. And in some cases, no, but let's just speak to the case of like nutrition, right? If someone's like, you know what, like not even a quick fix, but the easy option. So it's like, I'm on a diet, I'm doing so well, but like I'm starving right now. I've got to be at a meeting in 10 minutes. I'm just going to like hook through Macca's and get a cheeseburger, whatever. That's like a fix in that second, but half an hour later, you've got brain fog. A little bit later on in the day, you're probably feeling a bit shit that you had the burger, but you did have a salad or a roll or whatever at home that you could have ate that would have made you feel better, which therefore wouldn't have led to a snowball of you actually not feeling great anyway. So it's like you feel good for about 2 minutes in that decision.
Yeah.
But it's not actually a fix. It's not actually a solution. It's just convenient.
Yeah.
And I'm no shade. Like, slay the burger. Again, like if those are things that you want to do, that's fine. But it's just looking at the longer term picture of it and looking at, am I going to choose comfort in this moment or convenience in this moment with trading off, not even comfort, but just gain in the long term.
Yeah, and like actually progressing through this thing in the long term.
Fully, yeah. And, it can sound savage, but there is just so much secondary gain in
I talk about this all the time.
Yeah,
so
like
go for it.
this is kind of like going back to what we were talking to before, but there's so much secondary gain in choosing to identify as your diagnosis or choosing to identify as the symptoms of a diagnosis as well. So endo, for example, there are so many valid things that can, be a byproduct of being diagnosed with endo. So say potentially one example of probably a billion, but it's like, okay, I've been told or I've heard that a byproduct of endo is that it's a lot harder to lose like stubborn fat, or if that's like a goal that you have like fat loss, but then you've heard somewhere that that's harder for people with endo. How convenient is it for someone someone who doesn't, adhere to their protocols of fat loss to decide that the reason why they're not achieving that goal is because of the endo, not because of the choices that they're choosing to make every single day.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's like address that and then still validate what's true in that with like your endo and whatever the thing is. But it's like, let's look at what we're doing first though. Like let's look at what we're doing, what we're not doing. And then if we start to make better choices for ourselves, how does our body then respond from a pain level, from an inflammation level, from a fat loss or muscle gain level? Maybe it's a fat, like you want to gain weight, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let's look at that first.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think it's funny because when we had Sophie on who was explaining endo, she was very much on the same page where she was saying like, yes, there's external things we can look at. But I said to her, like, if a client came to you right now and they had endo or PCOS or like she deals with a few women's health things like that, like what would you do if someone came to you straight away with those things? And she's like, regardless of whether we had to do further testing and surgeries and meds or anything like that, that person will still benefit from eating well and training. So even if we're going to bring in those things at a later date, why not start with this stuff first? See if we actually get the response and the progress that we want. Maybe we don't even need to go there. If we do this for 3 months and we realize, okay, maybe we do need to bring in some medication or we need a specialist or a blood test or anything. It's not like, okay, don't worry about eating and training now because we're just going to go the blood test route or the medicine route.
Exactly.
So she was so like such a good point I think she made of like, we want that in place no matter what.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. And that's what the focus of like any conversation needs to be. I believe like if you want to become a more optimal human in yourself, like in your body and just in how you feel, how your brain operates, your pain, your inflammation, just feeling better, feeling good.
Yeah.
Yes, there are so many things that we can do from the blood tests, the this, the that, the surgeries, but also health should be the goal.
Yeah.
So what does that look like regardless?
Yeah.
Regardless. And 9 times out of 10, that actually leads to the outcome that you're searching anyway, or it speeds it up.
Yeah.
At
and
least.
you might need to add something little or something else,
Yeah.
but you've got that foundation set.
Yeah. It's not one or the other, but it is the foundation.
Yeah.
It's like the foundation for everything. And, even for me coming off having the marina removed this year, I was very open about, hey, I'm going to try and do this on my own, naturally, holistically, try and prevent my pain, try and prevent growth, try and manage it all. But if I got to a point 6 months down the line and I was like, no, I actually want this support as well, I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah.
Which hasn't been the case. I don't think will be the case. Yeah. But again, it's not demonizing anything.
Yeah.
It's just looking at what are your values and then how can you make choices aligned with those values to get to the outcome that you want for yourself.
Yeah. And I think even with that, there's benefits to just like mental and emotional health because you're then feeling a bit more empowered in terms of like, well, I'm doing what I can.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of, like I said, empowerment and sort of fulfillment that comes with that. Like you said before, if people kind of identify with their diagnosis and then just sort of sit around, poor me, I've got this thing, it's like the opposite of empowering or fulfilling or anything. So I think when you're consciously like actively working towards improving something you want to improve, there's a big mental and emotional health benefit there that's like, well, I'm doing my bit. So maybe even if I do have to seek external help, like I'm stoked with myself for what I'm doing.
Fully. Like I'm proud of myself. And that's another thing as well. And, when we speak to endo, one of the biggest things that cause extreme flare-ups is inflammation, right? And something that really causes inflammation in the body is a negative mindset, a negative perspective of yourself, and just stress.
Yeah.
Right? When you're someone who shows up and you're just doing what you know you need to do and you're someone that you're proud of, a lot of the time that stress level and that perception of yourself, the stress level is lower and the perception of yourself is higher.
Yeah.
So naturally that in and of itself is healing too.
Just feeling a bit
You just
better.
feel like yourself. You're just like, yeah, like cool. Like I'm doing what I can versus we all know the feeling when you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you're like, oh, I feel pretty shit. Like I feel like a bit of a just pretty shit right now. Imagine that compounded over time, consistently knowing that you're not doing what you can to help yourself.
Yeah.
That's just going to lead to more. It's just going to compound. It's going to compound either way, right? compound positively and support you, compound negatively and create more harm. So we just always have to think about that.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that. So when you had your diagnosis and the surgery and all of that, I feel like it's kind of separate, but it's probably happening at the same time with your like under eating and overtraining and everything. Did you have sort of a moment where you were like, I got to do this differently?
Yeah.
Or was it like, did it take a while? What did that look like?
Yeah. I remember vividly a day where, and like, I just want to just say it could be triggering for people because like I think a lot of women do navigate these seasons, especially when you just like, I don't know, for me, like thinking back to that little version of me, I just want to give her a hug. So I'm like, you're so depleted.
Yeah.
Like, you're so depleted. But I remember a day vividly, like I was just struggling to get up the stairs at my house. Like my fatigue was just out of control. And I was just like, you should not feel this way. Like you're what, 24, 25, whatever it was. Why do you feel like you're on your deathbed?
Why can't you get up the stairs?
Why can't you get up the stairs? And it's funny because, you know, this is so common for so many people, but I was praised for my physique and my grind and my discipline and my abs and my this and my double sessions and high intensity twice a day and just like such a weapon. And like externally, I was like, yeah. Like, you know, I was holding that image. Yeah. So I was like, I receive love this way. So shit, yeah, I'll go again to the gym. Like I'm dying on the inside. When I'm getting home, I'm not walking up the stairs. But, you know.
People think I'm fit.
People think I'm thriving, right? And it was just like, yeah, I just was like, nah, this can't be it. And then I probably fell back into the cycle of having it be it for a while. And then I remember I was coaching a group fitness class and it was an evening class and like 2 seconds just hit me, like that pain in my stomach that I was speaking to about like the undereating stuff. It just hit me. I ran into the bar in the kitchen, just went onto the floor in like a shell, like fetal position. And then, like I was like, no, I can't live this way.
Live like this.
Like I cannot live this way. And that was kind of the start of it all. And then the other side of that surgery was a lot of unlearning. It was a lot of understanding that physique and that version of myself was not actually healthy. And I had a very distorted perception of myself. Even then I was like, you're not lean enough or you're not this enough, you're not that enough. And I look back, I'm like, your bones are sticking out of you, you know, but we adjust, like our mind just sees what it wants to see, right? And so I had a really uncomfortable season of like, you need to put on body fat. And, you know, seeing that happen, then deciding that I was like overweight and I was like, it's tiny, you know, it's just your brain plays so many tricks on you. So it was just a whole process. But
we speak so much on the podcast about just growing up as a female. I think even like back in the day with just sort of like magazines and that type of media, and now obviously with the internet, and just I think especially back in the day, I think the older people are, the more they can relate to this mentality of just like health was as simple as like scale goes down good, scale goes up bad.
Yep.
And that's just like we speak about so much where now people, whether they're looking at scale, they're looking at their actual physique or whatever, that was just the message. It like would begin and end there for so long.
Yep.
And obviously now, you know, even like us with the podcast and you with your social media and everything, like everyone's trying to speak about like either muscle gain or weight gain or even just eating and training for goals that aren't body composition. And there's so many other things that we can do for like quote health. But I think when you've grown up with just that simple message of like weighing less / being skinny is good, the opposite is bad, it's so hard to break that mentality and break that cycle. And then I reckon a lot of people could relate whether they've been through like as a version as extreme of yours. I know people would have been through a more extreme version, or even just being a woman that does have those days. We speak about this even when girls want to do muscle gain where they're pumped and they're amped to do muscle gain, and then you have those days where you feel a tiny bit, quote, fluffy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, change the whole plan, back to the diet, back to this, back to that. And it can be such a spiral, but it makes so much sense when you piece it together and go, well, I spent 10, 20, 30 years thinking that weighing less and being skinnier is better.
Exactly.
So if I have a day where I'm not fully vibing my new physique or my new weight or anything at all, there's so much underlying stuff there that straight away goes, get back.
Yeah. And it's like the deeper level of that is like you're not lovable if you're not X, you know, because it's like you gain love from being this version of yourself, because so many people do, or not so much now, I would say, like you mentioned, there's such a different direction, you know, that even just online we're taking, which is incredible to see.
Yeah.
But, you know, for so long, what you did receive love for was like being shredded,
Yeah.
you know? And then you're like, oh, but I'm just a human. Like, I'm just Christina though. So can I just be loved for that? Like if I was 100 kilos, if I was 50 kilos, if I was 70 kilos, like does my worth depend on that number? Like we can't have that. We cannot have that be the case, because, you know, think about just even growing up, your body is going to change. Like, especially as a woman.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're going to mature. If you do, or you're lucky enough, or a goal of yours, or you have a child now, whatever it is, you're pregnant, your body's going to change.
Yeah.
So then what? Like, you know, it's just coming to a place of neutrality with it all, and coming to a place of also still allowing yourself to have goals.
Yeah, I
know?
think that's the duality of it. Like I can work on things, but also I can work on anything. I mean, we speak on the podcast so much about muscle gain, performance, having flexible phases where you don't give a shit about fully body composition or performance. Like you can literally work towards anything. And I think if you have the education and understanding of how to do that, you can decide, well, do I have a fat loss goal? Is it a good time for me to work towards that in a positive way? People can work towards being shredded in such a positive way.
Fully.
And then at the same time, someone can work towards having food freedom in a positive way.
Fully.
Someone can work towards being more strict with their food in a really positive way. So I think, like we say, it's like that duality and just being like, I can work towards anything.
Yeah. And also just questioning
And
what is the
work towards anything.
I just get to exist if I want. You know,
just chill for a
I
while.
just chill. I've been chilling for a while. Now I'm just going to rein it back in a bit. But and it's also just really questioning, where is this decision coming from? So if you're having a day where you're like, oh yeah, I'm speaking poorly to myself, I feel like I'm quote unquote fluffy, I feel like all this shit.
Don't make decisions today.
Yeah, it's like, are you making that decision because you're just feeling really shit in yourself today, and it's almost like a self-punishment of like, you need to be better, so that's why we're doing this? Or is it like, oh, I don't actually love feeling uncomfortable in my skin, and I respect myself enough to do something about it. Like there's such a different energy. And when 99,999% of the time, 99,000 million% of the time, when you make decisions from that like shameful place, you won't get the outcome.
Yeah.
Because why would it last? It's coming from such a heavy energy versus I just want better for myself, or I want more for myself, or I want different. That's so much more likely, you're so much more likely to achieve your goals in that as well. So
Yeah.
there's just so many things to consider.
I know.
Oh, it's kind of overwhelming. No.
Did you get any like advice from doctors or anyone in terms of the endo, like there's things you should do with nutrition or training or anything like that?
None.
Did you look into any of it yourself and find that there's things that you should actually change because of having endo?
Yeah. Yeah. So this has very much been the gradual journey for me over the last, 3 years? 3 years? Yeah, 3 years. What? 4.
Maybe a bit longer, yeah.
Since my surgery. So again, like I totally get surgeons are incredible at what they do, but they're incredible at what they do, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not meant to give you every piece of the puzzle, and there's different people that we can talk to for different things, right? So in my instance, my surgery again wasn't probably what I wasn't really happy with it in hindsight of the care factor, but also aware that my surgeon's job wasn't to give me all of these extra pieces. It was to do the surgery to support me the best that she could in that capacity. But post-surgery, I woke up and it was just like, all the best, you know, like, see ya. And I'm like, oh, bye. Like I was just like out of there, right? So I'm thinking, what's just happened? My stomach is a balloon from all the inflammation and the pain.
Yeah.
I got all these cuts in my belly and I'm just going home. And I'm thinking, and so that was like all I knew at that time, right? It was just like sending love. So that really started the journey for me to get curious. I would say the first like 6 months, probably not too much change like diet-wise.
Where were you at with the realizing you were under eating and overtraining? Did that happen before the surgery or was this?
To be honest, I probably knew it the whole time.
Yeah.
Like I was like consciously choosing to do those things.
Yeah.
Right. But it wasn't until my body just started quite literally shutting down that I was like, let's do something about this.
Probably don't want my body to shut down.
Yeah. And also just like the job that I was doing at the time, in the gym. So I was like a group fitness trainer for like high intensity classes though. So it was very, very active. And also I was like cracking like 2 monsters a morning before like 7 a.m. Do you know what I'm saying? Like my nervous system.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I know. Really. You know, just so many things that I was doing back then that I just didn't even consider could be an issue.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, you just wake up one day like, oh, it's
What am I
probably not chill. You know, like running on fumes, not eating, always opting for the low calorie thing, like just those kinds of things. And so over time, like I don't really know. It wasn't like a just switch overnight kind of thing for me, but it was just gradually my diet, I guess, started to change because I started removing so much fear around food, and also food that I now know. And I'll kind of go more into like what I know now about food and stuff that supports me and how I eat and stuff now. But I started removing fear around foods like high fat and healthy fat. So like your oils, your good quality butters, your nuts, your seeds, your avos, like all of that. I didn't have that in my diet for so long because it was like, what a waste of calories. It was like, what a waste of calories. So, you know, I was eating just like shitty sugar-free maple with like 1,000 preservatives and, you know, all this shit in it. I'm thinking, oh, why do I feel a bit like shit? Oh, you haven't had, you know, good quality fat in your diet for about 2 years,
dietary fat coming in.
Yeah, you know, so, and like for our hormones, like what do we know? That's like the most important thing. So I was like, that's very crazy. What a weird way to live, you know? And then,
What was I thinking for those years?
for like 10 years life. So that was like really the first thing I would say I started to incorporate more of. A lot of red meat too.
Yeah.
So again, I was just like, I don't know how to track a steak properly, so I'll just not eat that. Or I don't know how to do this properly, so I just won't eat that. But I was very, very low on iron, like very iron deficient.
Yeah.
So started incorporating a lot of that back in. And then I really just started to work on myself. And the more that I worked on myself, the more I wanted to look after myself.
I love this.
You know? So then
I'm just actually imagining your body just going like, oh my God, dietary fat and iron have entered the chat.
Yeah. And then I'm like, wow, I can get up these stairs. Like, you know.
Hang on a minute.
Hold on. And it's not until you realize you actually get to feel good. Or better.
Or you didn't realize how shitty you felt until you start to feel great and you're like, hang on a minute.
People feel like this?
Yeah.
You're like, are you seeing this? Because like it's just like you're crazy, and then you get addicted to that.
Yeah.
You know. So that was like my journey, and then I really started to like just get so fascinated about what more I could do to feel better and to have a brain that feels like it functions and to feel clear-headed and to just feel good and for my sleep to be better. Like that's not like so many factors of my life were impacted by the dietary choices that I was making. And so, yeah, I just like started to become obsessed with seeing how much better it got to get for me. What? Did that make sense?
Got to get.
And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now, I guess.
Yeah. Did you actually gain weight or like what did that look like?
Yeah. I had to get really comfortable with holding. There was definitely like a murky phase where it wasn't like, you know, I wasn't gaining muscle, I was gaining fat.
Yeah. But you also needed
But I needed to.
Yeah.
Right? So that was like such a mind for me because I was just like, but my whole life I associated healthy with like lean and, you know, all the things. And also good to know, like I had like a 18 kilo weight loss journey before getting to my thinnest little phase.
Oh my God, the plot thickens.
The plot thickens. Like that's like such an irrelevant story. But like I played basketball my whole life and then I did both my ACLs and after the second one I stopped. And so having been so active, I never like consciously exercised or trained or whatever. Yeah. So I just kept doing what I was doing, living life, eating Maccas, going out, doing whatever. Like I was little, you know, party queen. And I'm like, shit, you put on like 20 kilos, you know?
Oh my God.
That was so like such a strange time.
Yeah. And I think that really is like the plot thickens because then when you have gotten shredded and then you're like, okay, this has gone a bit too far, I need to gain a bit of weight. But then you're probably associating weight gain with like, well, when that happened last time, it didn't feel good at all.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And I was like such a shitty version of myself.
Yeah.
You know, like sending love to her doing her best at that time. But I'm like,
In the Macca's drive-thru.
Yeah, fully. But like you just associate, gaining weight with that season of life.
Yeah.
And so I was just like terrified. I'm like, no, that's not who I am. I'm not that person fully.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely did. And yeah, I just had to truly just get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And just also look for how much I was gaining at the same time. So like, desire to be training or in the gym, like the ability to just having energy throughout the day, or, my mind actually feeling clearer or having more strength and being able to perform better. Like I really had to focus on that.
Yeah. And I've spoken about that on the podcast before where it's like, technically gaining weight, but literally asking what else am I gaining?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's the quality of life.
Yeah.
And like there were so many days and there's still days where I'm like, you're not feeling very comfortable today. That's okay. Because tomorrow you're fine. It's like, it's not that deep. And it's now I get to approach, like I'm so neutral now with my body around, I just get to approach any goal that I have knowing that I'm doing it from like a genuinely healthy perspective and an approach, but also knowing that if at any moment it began to become like detrimental in any way to my health, to my hormones, to my progress, like that's
you can scale it back.
Always.
Yeah.
So that's like just the umbrella for everything of like, how is my literal body internally responding to this?
Yeah.
The external is going to mirror that, of course. But if it's sacrificing what's going on inside, then I don't care for the external.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so what does nutrition training look like now? Did you stop training when you like had gone through the surgery and all that, like in terms of like physical pain? Was it hard to train? And
Yeah, it was a 6-week recovery.
Yep.
I believe, maybe 6, I think. And the first 3 weeks, like, couldn't really move too much. Especially, I just was a bit resistant because, like, you actually feel the stitches, like, just like
Yeah,
it was
wow.
like weird. So yeah, I wouldn't say I was back like training in maybe 6 weeks, but at that time it was like a lot of high intensity stuff.
Yeah.
And it was at a group fitness gym, so everything that I was doing was circuit focus. So it wasn't like weight training and stuff like that progressively and like structured training sessions. It was just 3 HIIT sessions a week, 2 strength sessions, whatever. And I did that for probably another 4 months, and then at the end of that year I decided to hire my first online coach, and like that's when everything just transformed for me, because I actually started to focus on strength training properly. My body responded to that so well from just like how I felt, and my stress levels decreased so much because I was no longer smashing myself, with so much high intensity. And yeah, that's really kind of where I've been ever since. I did have a season going back to that gym and, incorporating that kind of training and stuff again, but just from such a different place.
And I was going to say that, like, I think there's the duality in that as well. And the number one thing I always say in the podcast is like, there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Like I would never sit here and say high intensity is right or wrong, but I think you have to know as an individual, is it right for me at the time? Like if you're using that to literally smash yourself into the ground, it's probably not that good. If you're someone who's really fueling and you're just loving life and you're like, I might just go down and do a class once or twice a week. Some people use it for social fitness. Like there's so many benefits to it, but I think you have to have the awareness of like, am I using this in the right way for me?
Definitely. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And I think that it's so important to just continue saying that in any conversation that we have in the health and fitness space, which I'm sure you do all the time on the podcast.
Yeah,
like
people are sick of hearing
Yeah.
Here she goes again.
No, but it's like that. It's just like there is only what's right for you.
Yeah.
And there might be seasons where what's right for you is you're not in the gym. Like maybe you're in your Pilates era, maybe you're in your yoga era, maybe you're just in your morning walk era, like, whatever it may be, there's going to be so many different seasons and things required of you. So if you can just trust your own judgment in that and how your body responds in that, and strip back any ego, strip back any, wanting to be seen or perceived or whatever a type of way, and just go, what's actually going to benefit me, and then do that, you're good.
Yeah.
Just no matter what it is, like no matter what it is. So yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So do you implement anything particular with your nutrition at the moment? Like because I have endo, or because I could have flare-ups or pain? Because when we had Soph on, she was saying some people can benefit from like having less gluten, or they can include different subs or whatever. So what does that look like for you personally?
Yeah. Very much gluten affects me a lot.
Yeah.
However, before I get into this, I need to go on a little bit of a sidestep.
That's fine.
But it kind of ties in. So I've been very just like intentional with the way that I eat is very intentional around how I want to feel, but also preventing endo, and of course. But I've also been very mindful of I don't want to create a intolerance for myself.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, right. That's so interesting.
Because I think this can happen so much where it's like we just go cold turkey on something, and then of course, you do that for so long, and then you get to a point where you maybe have that thing once and it just sends you because you've created almost an intolerance.
Used to it.
Yeah, right. So for me, I was like, I will do everything that it takes to heal and to feel my best, and that's been for probably the better part of 2 years now. Like the way that I eat hasn't really changed too much, which we'll go into. But I also, in the same breath, it's like, but if I want to go out for yochi with my husband, or if I have dinner with the girls and I have a cocktail, I'm also not going to do those things because I'm fearful of the effect that it might have on me. Yeah. And then I'm not a victim to the choice that I make though.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I don't want to live in a life where it's like I don't get to have those things when I want them. I don't really have them in extremes. It's just not. How much time in a day do I have to go to do yochi? You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't. If I did, who knows?
You're not doing cocktails every night?
No. Like, dude, if I have like a cocktail, I'm spent for like 2 weeks. So I'm serious about when I'm choosing to do that. But again, if I choose that, I'm not then wondering why I feel shit the next few days. Or it's like, if my next cycle is a bit more painful, I'm not like, oh, what could it be? Because last weekend you had
it together.
Yeah, like I know the choices that I've made. So it's just like, it's a choice that I made. That's that, right? But for me, what I find is that it's never at the time that I necessarily feel the effects of those foods. It's the cycle following.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I've really pieced it. It's usually like the month prior or the month or two prior that then determines the following cycle. So now I'm in my luteal phase at the moment and I'm thriving, right? But like, because I know the last few months, like I have been just, not much has been going on, been pretty busy, been working, been doing that. So I've not been like, out and doing this and doing the other.
Yeah.
And my diet has stayed pretty consistent. So my body is responding to that.
Yeah.
So that's something that I always just kind of am aware of.
I think the awareness around things like that is so cool. Like even when we had Soph on and she was talking about different phases of the cycle, and we were just talking about how it's so beneficial to actually learn what those phases look like for you.
Yeah.
Like so many people will say, oh, you get cravings at this time and weight goes up at this time, etc. But that can be so different from person to person.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool to have consistent nutrition in place for a few cycles and actually just look what does my body go through during that phase and that phase? When do I feel, for you it might be flare-ups and things like that, but even just for a person that's not dealing with anything like endo, just being like, when do I actually get the cravings? When does my weight spike? When do I not have energy for gym compared to other weeks?
Yeah.
I think knowing that for yourself is so cool.
Yeah,
as
definitely.
a woman.
It's so empowering and you work with that then.
Yeah.
Because you're not like waking up and going, oh my God, I feel so crap, but I'd schedule it in my, heaviest leg session of the week today. So I'm going to go do it. But then I'm here and I'm feeling shit. And you're just like, well, I get to actually work with that now and make changes where necessary and still do the things that I want to be doing, but just shift it around a little bit.
Yeah.
Or if you wake up and, you do have whatever it is that's going on, like you are feeling flat, you are feeling fatigued, your nervous system's pretty cooked, like you just need a chill morning. You get to do that and have that and honor that without feeling any type of way about it. It's just like, this is what's going to benefit me. And then I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And I would say too, with that, it's always making sure that you give yourself that time period. Like you say, do it for a couple of months, like do it consistently.
Yeah.
Don't just let it be like a week of eating good and then, nothing's really changed too much, or not even eating good, but just differently. Like, you trial something different. Yeah. And then going, oh, well, whatever. It's like, no, give it time, give it time. So for me, the biggest things, I just naturally don't have much gluten in my diet now. And I think that's just because I eat predominantly whole foods, but I also eat a higher fat diet. So I do still have like a solid amount of carbs, fiber, of course, protein. Like I really focus on my protein and my fats more so though.
Yeah.
But it's very easy for me to hit like a solid fat target because I eat a lot of mince, I eat a lot of eggs, I eat a lot of avo, I eat a lot of good quality butters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
High protein in the morning particularly has been a game changer for me, and good quality stuff. I feel people often probably look at what I eat like in the morning and be like, that's literally dinner.
Yeah, you're like a meat and veg breakfast person.
Yeah. But then also like if I'm wanting like a yogurt bowl, I'll have a yogurt bowl.
Yeah.
Or if I'm wanting some oats, I'll have some oats. But it is like gluten-free. It is just making those choices where I can. But then also, like we've mentioned, I'm very aware of how my not only body but my energy level responds to those things. Because when my energy level isn't where it could be, and when fatigue is there where it's not potentially needs to be there, like if it doesn't necessarily need to be there, but it is as a byproduct of, you know, what I've eaten or whatever, my stress levels increase, my nervous system
Domino effect.
We're on. Right. And then inflammation increases. Inflammation then causes flare up. So, you know, it's just so much more than what I'm eating. It's what I know what I'm eating is going to lead to.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like even now there's more, like the other day I was like, oh, I'm craving like a warm bowl of oats. So I had it and then I was so exhausted that afternoon because I know that it's going to happen for me. That's just what happens to me. Right. Versus if I'm eating some mince, some eggs, maybe some sauerkraut, avo, some kind of spinach, rocket, whatever it is, like I'm thriving. You know, my hunger levels are more consistent. My energy levels are more consistent. I don't crave anything. I'm not feeling like I need all this extra caffeine. I'm just
good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that. And then more so recently, I'm like caffeine. I'm never not going to have caffeine. Like I love a good coffee, but I'm like, all right, let's look at when you're having it. And are you just having it out of habit? Do you actually need it? Because that as well leads to a lot of flare-ups for me.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of playing around with that at the moment and just like consistently progressing.
Yeah.
But not because I need to, but because I just want to see how much better I get to feel as a result.
Yeah. That's so much.
And I'm also not perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's just like very important. Anytime we have these conversations, there's days where I'm like, oh, you had 3 coffees today. Like, you know, and you're feeling pretty shit and your flare up's pretty bad. But, you know, whatever. There's times and you just learn, you move forward.
Yeah. I think we speak so much about like being in a sweet spot with things on the podcast, like just finding a sweet spot where, like you said, it's not perfect, but overall it's a good spot for you. And, you know, even when we look at someone who's pursuing fat loss or anything, if you're in that sweet spot most of the time and then you do have a day where you're like, oh, a little bit high cal, or for you it's like, oh, a little bit too much gluten or caffeine, and then you rein it back in the next day.
Exactly.
You know, it's still, you're in that sweet spot overall, and you might have those little ups and downs throughout that, but then you step back and you look over a few months and you're like, I'm good. I'm good.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
But yeah, to summarize that, like for the listeners, and I just think it's good for people to experiment with different foods, especially with your hormones. I think that's the biggest thing. So the biggest things that I've found have like helped me just hormone-wise, of course endo, but hormone-wise as a whole, is a good quality breakfast, actually having more of a whole food focused breakfast, limiting refined sugar really. Like I love a mochi, you know, a little mochi ball at night, but like, you know, nothing crazy. Yeah. And the less you tend to have things, the less you crave them as well. So again, there's nothing wrong. Like if I want to have like chocolate, I have chocolate. You know, I'm not saying I don't have these things, but it's more so that I don't necessarily crave them, and then that just supports my inflammation and my healing because I'm not having them consistently. So good quality, high protein breakfast, a lot of red meat personally.
And Soph was a huge advocate for the red meat.
So much red meat. I like actually don't eat chicken. Like I'm actually just like, is this bad? Like I'm almost at that end of, should I be having less red meat? Like,
I was watching like one of your recent YouTubes and the chicken, and you're like, I'm going to have chicken. And then like 10 times in the episode, you're like, I don't know how I'm feeling about this. I don't know if I've cooked it right. If that doesn't hold up well, it's going in the bin. If I got to eat that tomorrow, I'm not going to eat that if I don't want it.
I know. I'm like, no.
And I'm like, girl does not like chicken.
No, she doesn't. Just terrifying. Like, terrifying. But yeah. And then gluten and caffeine.
Yeah.
Like those are my 4 things that I kind of focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I've spoken about this on the podcast over the years, where I think you get motivated by your own experiences. Like for you to include, you know, if you did include a lot of gluten or caffeine and then notice that it does flare things up and you're literally physically in pain and fatigue and energy and brain fog and all of those things, it's going to motivate a person enough to be like, I'm going to make some changes here.
Fully.
And, you know, I've had someone on the podcast years ago who had lost both parents to cancer. And so he was always looking into nutrition and cancer and the links and trying different things. And he was so motivated by that. Whereas, and I don't say this to be disrespectful, but someone that hadn't been through that might not really think twice about the links between different nutrition and cancer.
Yeah,
and I think that's a perfect example of things not being right or wrong. But if you've been through, if something affects you enough that it like prompts you to want to change it and investigate it, etc. That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So there could be people listening. I mean, even me, I've had the most low-key cycle and hormones for my whole life.
Yeah.
Like I've never had an issue with these things, and people probably hate me now. But so I don't get super drawn into, you know, if I saw content that was like nutrition for hormone support, I'd be like, oh, that's interesting.
Yes,
but it wouldn't really trigger something in me to be like, should I change everything?
Yeah.
So I think that's just so important to, you know, think about what actually does apply to you and what does trigger in you to look into those things.
Yeah, I love that's such a good point.
Yeah.
And everyone would have one. And like even I think for you, Rubes, what you value in life and like how you lead your life. Slay, firstly. She's like, what's this? What's this? Yeah,
I'm like, I like where this is going.
But it's like, you know, you can say, oh, I've never had any issues with this and that. But then you also don't see how you live your life. Like that actually prevents those things.
Yeah, true.
You know, and then you also have driving factors with losing someone really important to you in your life, like going, I have one life.
Literally.
So I'm going to, you know.
I'm going to eat Nutella.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in the same breath, I'm going to be the absolute best version of myself because how lucky am I to have another day?
Yeah.
You know? And so it's like finding that thing for whoever it is that's listening, like what's your thing?
Yeah.
And then
and you
do
know,
it for that reason.
I think when you strip back all the shit,
you do.
You know.
You do.
What is it that you
fully
want to work on and look into and implement? And
And like, what's your driver?
Yeah.
You know, and like I spoke about this on my socials the other day for the first time ever, but like someone very close to me in my life has early onset dementia.
Yeah.
And it's just heartbreaking. Like it's just the most painful thing to witness. And then, you know, thinking about that experience for someone and then going, there's nothing's guaranteed, but there's so much that we can do to prevent that from a brain health perspective too. So it's like, that's my driver, you know, alongside my hormones. I'm like, but I've got that reason. So it's like, what's your pain point in the most, you know, beautiful way?
Like, how can you use it?
How can you use it?
Way?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, how can you let your pain be your power and your purpose? And something that I say all the time is like, I refuse to get to the end of my life and be like it could have been so much better. In whatever way, I could have felt so much better. I could have been so much more vibrant. I could have had so many more opportunities. I could have done so many more things if I'd just chosen that, you know, and that all stems from how we feel in ourselves and in our bodies and, you know, in our minds and in our soul and in just feeling alive. Like that comes from what we've spoken about today. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not dying. I'm not on a deathbed like, what?
Yeah.
Like, no.
Should I have done it differently?
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. So anyway, it's my little TED talk.
No, I love it. I think that is a cool place to wrap up. But did you have anything else that you want to say? Or?
I mean, I could say so much, but I think the biggest thing it's to anyone that might be navigating something like I've had so many times in my journey where I've just felt so hopeless and like so defeated and just so like, why me? Like I have had those moments and I still got up the next day and just did something about it, but just have so much grace for yourself if you are there, I think, because it can be so challenging and it's like, I just, you know, you have moments where you're like, can this just not be happening? Like, can this just not be something that I have to worry about? Or can this just, you know, you don't have the answers and you don't have someone just there with a little booklet telling you step by step how to get to the next phase or get or feel better or do whatever. And just, have grace. Like just meet yourself with compassion. Yeah. Of course, look at the things that you could be doing and changing, but not from the lens of like you're not doing enough or you're not good enough right now. Like that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think when we have, you know, if your episode is titled something like nutrition training for endo or something, you're going to attract people that are in a similar position. And I think it's even just important to think, are you day one of this diagnosis or are you years into it? Because there might be people that are really early on and they are very much in that emotional victim, poor me, why kind of energy, and rightly so.
Fully.
And then even if you are a while into it, you might just be having a bad day with those things and thinking, poor me, like, why me?
Yeah.
So I think it really is that sweet spot of like you can acknowledge that, and it rightly so, it makes so much sense. But then also just taking on board everything Christina said in terms of like, okay, even just the first little step. What's the first little step I can make?
Exactly.
And then, you know, how do I sort of get the momentum going with that from there?
Yeah,
and just sit in that sweet spot of like, yeah, you can honor yourself, but also you can take a little bit of control at times too.
Exactly.
Or a lot of control if you want to.
Exactly. Because again, if I was listening to this myself when I was first like learning, I'd just be like,
You'd be
that
like,
is
"Shut up."
so far. Yeah, I'd
Shut
like
up.
literally, exactly. I would be. I'd be like, shut up. That's so far fetched. That's a lie. That's not true.
Yeah.
No way you eat like that. Like no way you enjoy that. Like, you know, whatever. I would genuinely think that, you know? So just let it be a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think that with the podcast. I think there'll be people that listen on like good days and motivated days and be like, hell yeah, Rubes, I'm picking up everything. And then there'd be days where people will be like, I can't listen to Ruby today.
Yeah,
I don't want to hear what the bitch has to say today.
Yeah.
Like say one more thing, Rubes, and I'll scream.
Fully.
So just let that be okay.
Yeah.
And I'll always be here. When you go through your process, we'll be here.
Yeah, I love it.
But thank you so much for coming on, and tell people where they can find you, because I think you have like the best social media vibe ever.
Stop it. I'm a joke. So Christina Pengilly on Instagram.
Yep.
And then Christina Harvey on YouTube. So I'm in the middle of changing names, guys. I
yeah.
did get married, but like.
Well, fun fact, we got married on the same day.
Yeah, we got married on the same day.
Same day.
I know.
What are the chances?
I love it. It's so good. So yeah, and YouTube, Instagram, that's where I'm at. I dabbled in TikTok for like 2 minutes, but
I've never done
it's too hard.
I know.
Yeah, it's just
You
not
can't do
don't
it
have it
all.
in me. Yeah.
No, but you're such a vibe on Insta
Oh,
so,
thanks,
and
girl.
YouTube as well. You're actually a real vibe
Oh,
on YouTube.
stop it.
But no, I think cool content. I think you have cool content in
you.
terms of, yeah, like we keep saying, it's relatable, but you're also getting after it. And
Yeah, it's just the vibe of like one life, guys.
I love it.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been the best.